Welcome everyone to a wellness and chemistry talk. I am Dr. Patty and I'll be presenting this with Daniel. Daniel is my partner in life. He is my husband. Daniel is also my partner in chemistry. So we are both chemists. So being chemists is one reason we call this wellness and chemistry. So we want to thank you very much for joining us today and don't forget to subscribe, follow, and share. So today we are going to start a series of talk that is called Your Nose Can Heal Your Brain. So it is really a bold claim, but it's also true. I really believe it's true. So why don't you explain what inspired us to start this series of talk around Your Nose Can Heal Your Brain?
Yeah.
Why the title?
All right. So Patty and I do a lot of free classes on essential oils, aromatherapy, and things like that in the community. We present these classes to anybody who will come to the library or to a church or to a cancer lodge or wherever we're teaching. We want to give them the best information. So we read a lot of research papers. We're chemists, we're researchers. This is what we do. And so we try to find the evidence that's not anecdotal evidence that somebody said it worked one time, one way. We want to look at the true research, peer-reviewed research. And so we've done this. And so we present this, and we see from paper after paper that your nose and your sense of smell can have a lot to do with your brain health, your brain function, the overall brain performance, longevity, and overall wellness. And these papers taught us a lot. And one time after the class was over, I went to Patty and I said, you know what? I believe your nose can heal your brain.
Chink.
That's right. So that's what we decided to do. Patty got the title done, and that's what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, that's it. We're going to call our podcast that way because, yeah, you say
That's
it
right.
right.
Yeah, and the other thing is your nose and your olfactory system is one of the most overlooked, in my opinion, one of the most overlooked organ systems in modern health and in brain health. Whether we want to or not, we smell every time we breathe in. Okay, we take about 18 to 20 breaths per minute, lots of liters every single day, and we're smelling the whole time. And you really don't think about your sense of smell very often, unless you had COVID and you lost your sense of smell. Then you're very concerned about your smell.
Yeah.
But it's one thing that's overlooked. But what we found is there is a direct connection with nose and olfactory health and your brain health.
So if there is a good correlation there, based on the paper that we've seen, so why is the nose, let's talk about, in the brain health conversation, why is that? Why do you think it is?
Well, one big reason is, to me, it's not really measurable. You can't measure how good is my sense of smell on a scale of 1 to 100. Maybe there's ways to do that. Maybe perfumers know how to do this. But in general, when you go to the doctor for a physical, do they ask you, do they give you different fragrances or odors or whatever to smell to see how well your nose is working? That's not normally checked. And then the other thing is people don't necessarily consider what the olfactory system can do as far as brain health and other things like that. So it's just overlooked. It's something we always have. We know we wake up in the morning, we can smell the coffee, smell the bacon and eggs or whatever you guys want to have in the morning. As long as we have that, it's not thought very much about. And we talk about we measure everything else, right? We measure a lot of other things, but we don't measure our olfactory system.
Well, we can't really measure, that olfactory system, the sense of smell, etc. So, in the world of like where data is king and your sense of smell is really subjective, so people really don't care about it, I would say. Yeah.
So many things that we do care about, like sleep data, for example, we measure it. Everybody, you can have an Oura ring, or you can have one of these watches that measures your REM, your deep sleep, light sleep, all that sort of stuff, your HRV. These things are wonderful to have and wonderful to know, but we don't have that for your sense of smell. It's subjective. It's not well tested in physicals and things like that.
Yeah, and also, when people think about sense of smell, they think about everything else but brain health. They think about perfume,
That's right.
fragrances, food. When people is cooking really nice, hey, then you're going to use your sense of smell.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah.
But so sometimes it's a matter of preference, really, to think about it. I think about it only when it's really in front of my nose and I can smell it.
That's right.
Yeah, and also I would like to add something like, no one really asks or cares like what information is the brain is receiving. behind pollution and oxygen levels, etc. And so, in a sense, people really don't know or understand some facts, about the nose and the sense of smell. I would say that. So,
Your sense of smell is active 24/7.
yeah, it
Right?
receives information all the time.
Exactly, receives it all the time. So, just a few facts about your olfactory system that you should know. The sense of smell is the very first sense to develop in the womb.
Yeah,
And
we always tell that to the students. You are talking about we teach students, etc., and we tell them that, and they're always like, "What?"
so, after, when a child is born, it uses its sense of smell to work its way to the mother's breast. And so, with no help from any outside help, they know exactly what to do, and it's guided by their sense of smell. So you have it first when you're born.
Yeah, that is a story actually that we tell the everybody all the time. The story is like where we get that information from. It's like we had a family couple friends, and the new mom was giving birth, and she was followed by a doula or a midwife, and that person told the new mom to put the baby on the stomach, on the abdomen, and after that the baby started to crawl without no help, and by crawling, the baby find its way to the mother's breast and started to feed itself. So we tell that story to students, and they are totally amazed.
Yeah. So the sense of smell, even in a newborn, is really, really keen, if you want to call it that.
Yeah.
I have friends that are identical twins. I still to this day I have trouble telling them apart. But anyways, one of the ladies had a baby, and the baby was a month or 2 months old, and it would cry, and the aunt would pick the baby up, and the baby would continue to cry, and she would hand it to the twin sister, and the baby knew the difference between the two, even though the vision is not very well determined, or it's not very well developed that early in life. The child can tell by the sense of smell, even at a very, very early age. So it's definitely not sight, because they look exactly the same. So it has to be smell.
Yeah, it has to be smell. If the baby can crawl to the mother's breast without any help just after birth, I mean, no sight at that moment, right?
That's right.
Yeah, so the funny thing is when we tell these facts to the student, and they are like amazed, but some of the students know about it. When we teach too, we are trying to ensure that the students understand deeply the meaning of the sense of smell. So we usually ask students, why do you think the sense of smell developed first, right? And of course, everybody will answer, because the baby needs to smell the mother. So that is absolutely true, but we believe it's like way more than that, based on all the papers that we've read.
Yeah, so the baby uses its olfactory system to approach the world, because that's what it has. It has the most developed sense is olfactory when it's first born. And the child orients itself to the world based upon the feedings, the bonding from the mother, and the olfactory system of all the compounds that are in the air. And these biological compounds that we all sort of emit, the baby recognizes the specific one for its mother.
Yeah.
And it's the first.
Amazing.
It's the first chemical dialogue that a child has, is between the mother and the child. And these smells are used, and all the sense of smell is used to help wire the brain and to help the brain develop.
Yeah.
Okay, and so humans are born with this innate sense, this olfactory system, but it has to be developed, and it needs to develop as quickly as it can.
Even though we are born with already like a very sophisticated and really functional nose and sense of smell, it needs to be sustained to be used all the time. Literally, we are born to smell, but we just don't really use it, right? Unfortunately, the modern system ignores that very first sensory experience that the baby have with the mother and also with the word. So just like, do you want to expand on that?
Yeah, the modern medicine, children are born, if you compare what happened, 1,000 years ago, 2,000 years ago, children were born in their homes or out in the field. while mothers were working, and
Yeah.
they just stepped to the side and had the baby and that sort of thing.
That
But
is so true.
now most babies are born in, I was going to say a lot of babies, well, most babies are born in a hospital. And hospitals are designed to be a place, well, it's the Hippocratic Oath, right? First, do no harm. So hospitals need to be clean, they need to be sterilized. We want to make sure that nobody gets a bacterial or a fungal infection while they're in the hospital, which oddly enough is very hard to do that. So they spend a lot of time on cleaning and sterilizing and oxidizing, things like that. And you want to minimize risk in a hospital, and that's why you do all this stuff. And so when a baby's born, of course, the baby's going to be wiped and cleaned and wrapped and measured and tested and then sent home. All these things are important, okay? But at the same time, being in a sterile environment is not necessarily good for the olfactory system. So their first sensory experience is with sterilized products and artificial scents, and not their own mother's odors or their own aromas, and not nature for sure. So what happens is modern medicine has framed birth as a mechanical and a medical issue, not a deeply sensory issue. And so what it does is, from a very, very early age, modern man has interrupted the strongest window that there is for the olfactory guided brain activity.
That is kind of like really sad. Not sad, but it's unfortunate that we don't apply that, because it's kind of like saying that your olfactory deprivation really starts like literally within minutes of your life. You just
right.
like deprive the baby from smelling
Yeah.
first minutes actually they are born.
That's right.
And that is going to be continued throughout our
Throughout their
life.
life, yeah.
And we don't
right.
think about it.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up olfactory deprivation, because that's
Yeah.
what it is. In the modern world, everybody, if you're in the modern world and you work indoors especially, you're being olfactory deprived. And it's intentional, because you want to be in a clean environment when you're inside. So sanitation workers and office workers and everyone does a good job of keeping things clean and bacterial and fungal free. And you don't necessarily have the fresh plants and that sort of thing in offices anymore. So that's where we are. That's the state of what we have now, that olfactory deprivation, not having the natural aromas going through your nose and your olfactory system, just quietly slows down brain health, brain function, emotional regulation, memory, and to a certain degree, even longevity.
When I think about that, I am a little sad, because I grew up in Madagascar. We cook a lot. I smell a lot. So when I moved here in a modern world, like first France and then America, and I really didn't know that I was like deprive myself, not really from the sense of, not me that intentionally was doing that. It's just that the modern life deprived me from the sense of smell. So before you explain what is really the meaning of olfactory deprivation, so why don't you first explain how the modern life changed? That's why I wanted to bring that. Change the air we breathe, that the air we breathe from nature, I would say, and how it continues to interrupt our sensory experience, and which is really crucial for brain health, brain function, brain performance, and really brain longevity.
Well, if you go back thousands of years, humans lived in a very rich and dynamic, changing smellscape, if you want to call it that. Hunter-gatherers, so they're smelling the wind to smell where the flowers are and going in that direction to pick the fruit and that sort of thing. So they used their sense of smell a lot more than we do now. And they were out in the open, out in nature, slept in caves or slept on the ground by a fire, which all have their own smells there. And that's where we were. And we're not there now. So what happened back then was, you have nature, plants, animals, microorganisms, they all talk to each other, and they still talk to each other, and they emit airborne molecules and VOCs, which are volatile organic compounds, in the environment. And so the molecules that are in the air act as signals between the plants and the animals, and they carry information, and they can influence behavior. Like, for example, you're walking through the woods and you smell smoke. Okay, what are you going to do? Well, maybe it's a forest fire, maybe it's a camper, right? That sort of thing. It influences behavior. Your ability to smell things influences your behavior. right? Think about
Yeah.
that. So, anyways, the ecosystems that we live in or lived in were very diverse, and there were lots of airborne molecules. Those airborne molecules are still there,
And I
right?
would say, like when we say airborne molecule, I want just to make sure that it's like a natural airborne
That's right.
molecules,
Yes,
right?
yeah, fragrant.
Uh-huh.
A lot of the fragrances that air fresheners and things like that are man-made. They're petroleum derived, not
So,
natural. Yeah,
yeah, when the plants and the fungus, the microorganism and the animals are connecting to, I mean, communicating
that's
among
right.
each other, they are natural airborne molecules. I just want to precise that.
But where our body was built for the man that was alive, 5,000 years ago, because they were embedded into that ecosystem. So our body we're still making that same body. Okay, our body hasn't changed that much in those years.
The
So
biology has not
that's
changed
right.
that much.
So
We are still being embedded into that ecosystem
that's right.
today, and since a baby is born,
That's right.
everybody is embedded into that system.
So they,
But
yeah, those invisible communication systems are still there. Okay,
yes,
and
yeah,
we should be constantly receiving them, but we're not.
yeah,
We're not. And then the other thing is we're not really going around sniffing the air, right? We're not
no,
going around
it's
looking
just
for
there.
aromas. It's just there all the time. And all these airborne molecules become a part of our environment, and we need to use these things from the beginning, right? We need to use these things from the beginning. We need to stimulate our nose-brain pathways all the time because they contribute to the olfactory enrichment. Olfactory enrichment is the way you get that is through a diverse collection of airborne molecules. Enrich your olfactory system, whether you know it or not. Just a good walk in nature will help you out a lot. It's therapeutic not only for your body and the walking, the exercise you get, but also from the aromas. Now, how does this affect humans? Okay, our olfactory processing right now is going on, but it's usually below our consciousness or awareness is the best way to describe that.
And in a sense, like a thank goodness, because can you imagine every time you smell something, you know
Yeah,
what I mean?
that's
And I
right.
think it was meant to be to have a very low level, like that
That's
we are
right.
not aware of it, but it's there. Yeah,
Yeah,
so
that's
it's
right.
like as you say, like it's below conscious
That's right.
awareness.
Yeah,
It's kind of normal.
and you don't necessarily need to identify a smell or an aroma for it to affect your mood or regulate your stress or emotion or to improve your memory or your brain health or well-being. You just need to be exposed to it. You don't have to be looking for it and wafting it in. You just need to expose yourself to it. Okay, and that's a good example of how natural airborne compounds can change your mood even though there's no odor or no aroma to it.
Yeah,
So anyways, these things are out there. Unfortunately, modern man has changed their environment quite a bit.
yeah,
Now, what Patty likes to say is we have a triad, so to speak. There's a triangle of plants and animals talking to each other, and we're in the center of it.
yes,
And we should listen through our noses like the babies do when they were born.
yeah.
It's critical in that moment and crucial to increase the power of smell. Thus, this power of our brain goes during our lifetime. So it's an early development tool of using the olfactory system, but you should continue it your entire life.
But as I say, it's unfortunate that it's underestimated. So that's the reason why we do this series of talk to ensure that we continue to have that conscience that we need to breathe natural airborne molecules.
That's right.
And because the modern life has as you say, dramatically changed the chemical conversation between and within living organism, etc. So it has changed the chemistry of what we are supposed to breathe.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
we've lost the
so yeah,
context of it all. So the scentless environments inside of buildings is not it's not the way it's supposed to be,
yeah,
right? But unfortunately, that's the way the modern world has to live. And we've replaced outgoing in the nature. We've replaced it with modern buildings with HVAC systems that filter the air. Good reason. Don't get me wrong. The air needs to be filtered, but it's scentless in the building, in your house, or in your classroom. And we breathe the filtered air. Sometimes people put air fresheners in there and some odorants of some sort, and then they're low diversity, right? So when the big chemical company decides to make an air freshener, they want to use as minimal amount of products as they can or components as they can to get the
yeah,
desired result. So you'd have a fragrance is just maybe one compound or two compounds, essential oils have 80 to 100 compounds. We'll get to that later.
So, we have disrupted that natural communications, and we need to do better. Sometimes when you go to a sterile spaces and you enter a room, and when you smell bleach, you say, it's so clean. So
Yeah.
the smell of the bleach or no smell at all, we are thinking that that's the right things, that's the right smellscape environment that we need to breathe. No, actually that is really bad for your health, because your brain doesn't receive any natural airborne input that makes it go in and live a long time, right? We have replaced all of these meaningful and diverse airborne molecules with chemical noise, that is the bleach, as I mentioned, and he also replaced everything with monotone,
Yeah,
chemicals.
exactly.
You always smell the same thing days in and day out, and that is olfactory deprivation,
That's right. And
right?
so when you say olfactory deprivation, most people will hear that somebody has no smell at all. Well, that's not true. Olfactory deprivation is not the absence of a sense of smell, but it's really, you can live in a beautifully scented home and still be olfactory deprived. And I know it sounds a little bit backwards, but that's the way it is. You're exposing yourself to chemicals and things that are not great for your olfactory system. And therefore, in the modern world, most people are olfactory deprived. Let's just sum it up right here. The summary of olfactory deprivation is pretty simple. It's the lack of biologically, naturally meaningful odorants and the VOCs, volatile organic compounds, that are emitted by nature. Having a low diversity of aromas around you, and then have repeated odorants applied to you, as in fragrances that are sprayed around the room, and then the dominance of synthetic scents and the lack of the natural scents is really, at its essence, that's what olfactory deprivation is, and unfortunately most of us live that way.
The problem with that too is like it persists in the air, like really, and on the clothes. Just think about perfume, think about the detergent, think about all these chemical you
That's
have
right.
in your house, and then all of them are going to mask the natural signals that your brain's supposed to receive. And so that is going to lead to what?
Well, what happens is when you have just those single component fragrances, it's going to saturate all of your olfactory system, the entire thing, and get to your brain receptors, and it just overwhelms them. And that can lead to a condition we call olfactory fatigue, and it can reduce your sensitivity. Maybe you could smell 2 ppm of lilac in the air before, but after you've been in a building where all these fragrances is repeatedly bombarded on you, you go back and you try to go smell the lilac, and you can't smell it to 10 ppm or 20, or until you get right next to the plant. So it hurts with your detection thresholds. You can have a subtle loss of perception using your olfactory system. And it can also affect understanding why nice smells can still dull the brain. It may smell nice, okay, it may have a nice fragrance, but it can dull your olfactory system. So that the brain receives less meaningful information per every breath. This is what olfactory deprivation looks like.
In everyday life. Yeah. So now you know what you need to do? You need to go out and do some forest bathing. This is the right chemicals that the brain need. The
That's right.
brain doesn't need fragrances. The brain doesn't need all of these,
That's right.
synthetic. Sorry, maybe I should not all of these synthetic, because
That's
there are
right.
so many synthetic stuff out there. The brain doesn't need that. You want to make sure that you really go outside. So I have a little question for you.
Yeah, go
So
ahead.
what does the brain slowly lose over time because of olfactory deprivation?
Okay, so now there can be an acute situation where, for example, if you're exposed to a really harsh chemical, where you can have an acute situation where you lose your sense of smell, or you can have COVID or flu or something where you lose your sense of smell. But otherwise, olfactory deprivation is just a slow accumulation of a loss of sense of smell. So, like for example, a young child should actually smell the good fragrances and the bad fragrances quicker than I can. It's just natural to lose some sense of smell. But it's so slow that you don't notice that you've lost it, right? It's just cumulative over time. It's kind of like hearing and sight. You know, I have hearing aids now. Didn't know I needed them until I put them in. Now I can't live without them. So it's the same thing with your sense of smell. It's a quiet decline, okay? In memory and emotion can be affected. All these sort of things can be affected by your sense of smell. And it's cumulative. So why do senior citizens have lots of problems? There's lots of different reasons. Nobody really thinks about the olfactory system as being a source of some of the problems. But we do know that as the olfactory acuity declines, your sensory, your curiosity into odors fades. It can affect your memory and your emotional engagement and reduce well-being, and then of course depression. So
some studies are really saying that it can lead to all different kinds of problems when you don't have this natural, like airborne. It can lead to depression, it can lead to anxiety, it can lead to a lot of things. This is all the papers are saying.
That's right.
So that's the reason why we get the title. When Danielle say we need to title, when you just say one phrase, and he is like a one phrase person sometimes.
Mr. Soundbite.
Mr. Soundbite, you know, your nose can your brain, and that's exactly it. Your nose are meant to smell natural molecule and not like synthetic molecule.
Yeah. So here comes the serious part of this whole thing, okay?
Yeah.
And the uncomfortable truth that everyone needs to know.
Yeah.
The loss of smell often comes before any cognitive decline, not after.
Yeah.
So be on the lookout for that. If you're my age or older, then make it a conscious effort to enrich your olfactory experience.
It's really an early warning sign we all ignore, right?
Yeah, that's right. The loss of sense of smell may be the symptom, or it could be the mechanism. It could be the reason. Okay, we don't know that. It's hard to determine whether which came first, chicken or the egg. But we do know that the loss of sense of smell and dementia are hand in hand, and Alzheimer's and all of these terrible diseases. They're predicated or the loss of sense of smell.
And especially that you have a mother that had like Alzheimer's disease.
That's right. It's terrible to watch. It's hard to watch. But what we like to say, and we know is true, is when a pathway to the brain is underused, you lose those circuits, and you lose that stimulation. So the reduced stimulation can affect your memory, your emotion, performance, and resilience over time. We know that. We've got papers, studies that show this. So it's kind of like use it or lose it, applies to the nose and the olfactory system as well.
Yeah.
So with the other point I'll make about the olfactory system is your nose doesn't just smell the world, it helps you understand the world. So if you can't smell the world, your ability to understand it is compromised. And it also helps your brain stay healthy and improving your overall well-being. And like I said, I believe, and we've got the studies to prove it, that your nose can heal your brain.
Yeah.
So
speaking of that, so let's talk a little bit about hope and solutions.
That's right.
And talk about olfactory enrichment. So, which is the contrary of olfactory deprivation almost. So tell us what is olfactory enrichment.
Olfactory enrichment is a treatment for olfactory deprivation. And so what we want to do is we're going to change the chemistry of what we breathe intentionally.
Yeah.
We're going to reintroduce meaningful natural scents into your olfactory system intentionally.
And not fragrances.
That's right. Natural.
No, natural.
Right. And we want your olfactory system to have a rich biological diversity and more variable aromas and stimulation than what you're getting now. So it's a sensory nutrition for your olfactory system and thus your brain. And so we've read so many studies about how inhalation and aromatherapy can support the brain and the overall health. And we're going to touch on a few of these right quick.
During our classes, we present maybe more than 50 papers. But we read more than 50 papers to get to 50 papers that we share to the students, right?
That's right. Yeah.
So there is one paper that we can discuss today, the one that we
Yeah.
usually share. And it's a study that can help us how we can think about scent in a sense. So the goal was to determine whether older adults retain or improve their cognitive abilities over 6 months following nightly olfactory enrichment with essential oils. Okay, so the findings like show improvement in memory and a change in the brain structure. So we talk about that paper all the time, but just like summarize a little bit the study,
Yeah.
and then the way we view the study, it's a little bit different. But I want you first to summarize the study and talk a little bit about the
Yeah.
results.
Yeah, so what it was there was a number of adults from age 60 to 85 in this study. And what they did was for 6 months, they smelled natural odorants, essential oils, at night. And there were 7 essential oils in this study. And what they did was, as they went to bed, they turned on an essential oil diffuser with an essential oil in it for 2 hours, and then it would shut off. Okay, and there were 2 groups. Now there's some issues with this study, and we'll get to that. But let's just say what they
Yeah.
found. Okay, so what they found was in the patients or the people that had the 2 hours of essential oil therapy, aromatherapy, showed significant improvements in cognitive abilities using the standard cognitive tests that they use for these type of studies.
Yeah, the test was like a verbal learning and also memory test.
That's right. And so the patients that didn't receive the essential oils, they had a very, very low dose of an essential oil. The other group had what would be called a therapeutic amount added. So would like to have seen zero essential oil in the other study. But anyways, the long story short is the results were more than statistically significant in the gains in cognitive ability, not loss, but gains. In the patients that received the essential oils, no one lost any cognitive ability. In the other group, unfortunately, 3 of the participants lost some cognitive ability that would be similar to the cognitive loss in any person over that time. And so those that were treated had very good results. Even one of the patients had a 226% improvement in cognitive ability after 6 months of just about any essential oil. Patty, do you remember which essential oils they put in there? It's some of the usual suspects, right? Lavender, eucalyptus,
Rosemary, I don't remember the whole list.
Yeah, but they are very, very common oils, and pretty much
Peppermint.
they all worked.
Yeah.
They all worked to improve cognitive ability. And so at the end of the study, the doctors in charge measured not only the cognitive ability, but they looked at brain structure, and the brain structure was larger, more neural connections, and that sort of thing. And so the summary at the end of the paper says it all. Basically, what they said was essential oils are relatively inexpensive,
Yeah,
low cost, abundantly available, easy to use. There are no potential side effects or anything bad that will happen. And basically, they said, we don't understand why everybody in the world wouldn't go ahead and do this to help improve your cognitive abilities.
Yeah.
And so that was enough for us.
I like the study. Of course, there are some gaps.
There's some gaps.
But I like the study in a sense that there is no learning curve. People don't need to do
right.
anything.
Do you have to swallow anything? Any pills or anything?
Nothing. Just like sleep.
Just go to sleep with essential oils going.
With essential oil going on. And no pills.
That's right.
In improving their brain health.
No prescriptions, no doctor's visits.
No, nothing.
Yeah.
And just smelling essential oils. And there is like you say that 226 improvement.
Yeah.
I mean, that's amazing.
No, every single patient that had the essential oil treatment, the therapeutic dose, had some cognitive improvement, and they were all statistically significant.
What is nice too is like it goes up to 85 years old.
Yes.
That's the study was done up to 85 years old.
So never too late, right?
Never too late, right? But as you mentioned earlier, the paper has gaps and limitations. Okay,
right.
Because
well, let me ask you this, Patty: would you have used peppermint in a sleep study?
No, I will not. Well, I will not use peppermint in a sleep study. And that was not a sleep study.
It's not a sleep study, right? That's the other problem.
Yeah.
What did they do? Did they measure
They
sleep?
didn't. Yeah, they didn't measure.
They measured the sleep at
maybe
all.
they did a little bit, but it was not. That was not the main goal.
Yeah, that
you
was
know.
not part of the
That was not the
part of the study.
Yeah. So, and then one thing that the gaps of the paper, I would say, yes, the type of essential oils, I would not, as you said, I would not have used it, and they did a little bit of fragrance criteria, but I think it was not in depth. There was no lifestyle criteria, and I'm not sure how often these people were in contact in nature, because I don't know how that could affect that 226 improvement. I don't know.
Then what about the purity of the oils?
Yeah, that's one thing too that we're gonna talk more about, in more talks. And also, I don't know if they stay indoor most of the time when they were outside.
Yeah.
Before, what kind of lifestyle did they have, right?
Yeah.
That is kind of they didn't really talk about that. So all of these gaps, I don't know, would the result be different?
That's right.
If also like, they didn't do the study. They just did the study only for 2 hours and not all day long. So
that's right. You don't know.
Oh,
but
yeah.
To me, Patty and I, we measure our sleep every night. We have the rings that measure those sort of things, and we both know there's a correlation between deep sleep and essential oils, and there's a correlation between deep sleep and cognitive ability.
And we are going to do that actually our next talk.
That's right.
It's going to be about olfactory enrichment and sleep. So stay tuned.
Stay tuned. That's a good one.
So this is what I think. I think they could have had a better design protocol, and but the results are still very fascinating, especially for older adults, because I know the paper as a goal, but the way we view the paper, it's a little bit different. We view the paper from different angles, because the paper reveals some aspects of going from olfactory deprivation to olfactory enrichment. You agree with that?
Yes.
But it also shows your nose can help restore what's being lost.
That's right.
So we've talked about that like multiple times. I mean, because we read so many papers and we talk about that all the time. Sometimes the paper as a goal, but we just see things differently since we've learned about what's the meaning of olfactory deprivation and olfactory enrichment. So let's just go through different points, like the way we see these different types of paper, right?
Right. Yeah. So this is more of a summary of what we've learned, right? The point number one that I want to make about these papers is that we are biologically designed to smell nature.
And explain why.
Well, because the biology of our bodies prioritizes the nose and the sense of smell early, from newborn,
Baby,
right?
newborn.
Yeah. And the reason the olfactory system and the aromas around the world and outside, they exist because these things matter to the brain.
Yeah.
The nose is constantly receiving information, air chemistry, pollution chemistry, fragrances, oxygen, all these sort of things.
Yeah, from the environment.
Yeah, but only the biologically meaningful natural airborne chemicals are what are here to support your brain health.
And that's the reason why the paper, you change the chemistry around the nose.
That's right.
Guess what happened to the brain? 226
That's
improvement, brain function.
Yes.
So smell is not secondary or decorative, right?
That's right.
It's a foundational to how the brain is built and regulated.
That's right. Point number two, once again, natural odorants actively support your brain function. What happens when the brain receives this input?
Natural input.
Natural input. What is it? What do we expect? Well, guess what? It improves your memory. It can change your brain anatomy. It can change your brain wiring, and even increase the size of your brain.
Yeah, it's amazing. That was not the only paper. There are like a few papers that say the size of your
the gray matter,
increase.
That's right. So the brain responds to nature because it evolved looking for and expecting these signals from nature.
Yeah. So the brain is saying, "Hey, where are the natural chemicals? I'm waiting for it."
That's right.
You send the brain some fragrances, The brain may say, hey, no, that's not what I expect to smell. I
That's
need
right.
some natural airborne molecule.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Right.
that's why your nose can yellow brain.
That's right. So the absence of natural smell is not neutral. That is not neutral.
This is
Okay.
what people think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not neutral. What happens is your brain is missing an input. It's missing a signal, and this absence of natural odorants doesn't allow your brain to continue to improve. And so when the nose is underused because it's not in nature, the brain loses that important input, that important source of information, and slowly over time it can contribute to olfactory deprivation, which can lead to functional decline in the olfactory system, which may in fact lead to cognitive function problems.
Yeah,
So
and most people today are olfactory deprived in their daily life because of that. And we don't even realize it that
yeah.
we are olfactory deprived.
So when you're in a situation where there is no smell, there is no natural aroma, that is not harmless.
Yeah,
Believe it
it's
or
a
not,
problem.
yeah, it's a problem. You're allowing your olfactory system to be deprived and depriving your brain of some needed input.
Yeah.
Okay, and so olfactory deprivation, point number 4, olfactory deprivation is a modern lifetime exposure event. And
So
it's
why is that?
Yeah, it's widespread and it's cumulative. From birth onward, what happens is people are going to have this chronic olfactory deprivation because of the modern world we live in. And the concentration and diversity of natural odorants has declined over the years in our surrounding nature. And it continues to go that way. So we're going to have to take a bold stance against it. We're going to have some things to
Yeah.
do, right? Because we're all going to experience because we all live in this modern world. So we need to have some things to do to turn the corner and go back the other way.
And actually, when I think about it, when I think about it, with all of these like neurodegenerative diseases that we see, like your mom get like Alzheimer
Yeah.
disease, right? And that is really raise a lot of important questions
right.
about these diseases. So we can ask like how much is this olfactory deprivation is linked to,
Yeah, that's right. To cognitive decline. So let's just state the facts here, okay? It's a proven fact that loss of hearing and not treating it contributes to cognitive decline. It's a proven fact that the loss of sight and the lack of corrective eyewear or surgeries or whatever increases cognitive decline. So is it really that big of a stretch that loss of sense of smell or loss of olfactory experience could lead to cognitive decline? So it's not that big of a stretch to say that one other sensory system could impact cognitive ability.
Yeah, like all of these neurodegenerative
That's right.
illnesses. So, we ask that all the time. Maybe this neurodegenerative disease is linked to olfactory deprivation. It can be linked to constant exposure to non-natural
That's right.
fragrances, right?
Yeah,
But
exactly.
you can also link to sterile and odorless indoor environment.
Yeah,
But nobody is talking about that.
that's right.
And that's why this conversation the conversation about neurodegenerative disease, we need to include olfactory deprivation.
It has to be in the conversation.
It has
It
to
has
be.
to be.
Yeah.
And there's simple and effective treatments available. So there you go.
Yeah.
So-
So we've always think that all of these like neurodegenerative processes, we are not MD or anything like that, but may begin far earlier than we typically assume because of that, long-term sensory deprivation.
That's right.
This is why we've been like, that is some of the conclusion that
That's
we came
right.
about.
Yeah. So
right?
for me, it's very simple. Get outdoors, get the forest bathing. Some of our favorite places to go are botanical gardens.
Yeah,
I mean,
we love that.
That's right. But do we have a botanical garden in our backyard? Not really. So,
No, we have gardens.
yeah, that's right. I wouldn't compare it to Montreal, for example. But
Yeah.
anyways, so there's things to do, and then that leads us. Okay, so we've identified all the problems with olfactory deprivation and the potential consequences of it, which could lead to cognitive decline, brain disorders, and neuroplasticity going away. So what is our treatment for that? Olfactory enrichment, right?
Yeah, so yeah, that's our last point about like one of the points I would say that we wanted to say. And because we think that all of these neurodegenerative disease might not be an aging problem, it just may be a lifetime exposure or a
Yeah, that's right.
olfactory deprivation problem. So that's why we need olfactory enrichment.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
So an aging brain can still respond to natural odorants, right? An aging brain can still be plastic. It can
yeah,
still be movable. Olfactory deprivation is reversible,
yeah,
right? Olfactory enrichment may support resilience in the context of neurodegenerative diseases or condition.
yeah. That is really key. So we are open to talk with all of these like people that is doing all of this brain longevity. Hey, we can talk. We can be part of
Yeah,
that
yeah. So
conversation.
that's right. So I guess the one of the bigger points here to make is your brain never stops listening, right? Never
Yeah,
stops listening from your olfactory system and from your nose.
yeah.
The problem is we just stop feeding it meaningful information.
And when we say meaningful information, I want to precise natural airborne molecules.
That's right. Exactly right.
Yeah, the molecules that the plants and the animals and the fungus microorganism are
Yeah.
using to communicate between them, and we are just in middle of them, and we are supposed to receive that, right?
Now,
So
replacing that chemistry does not have to be hard,
no,
right?
it's not complicated.
Yeah. So this is where the essential oils come in.
Yeah, that's why we are very proud.
Yeah.
With yeah, I can say a little bit about
Go
the
ahead.
company. I guess that's why we are very proud that we've started the company like in 2024 and do a lot of essential oils, the importance of essential oils for the brain, and I think that will help to change that chemistry
That's
of
right.
what we breathe. So it's kind of nice to be part of like solution.
That's right. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
I was skeptical in the beginning. I've told this story many times. I had a really bad injury on my wrist, had a huge mound here where it doesn't belong. And it's not cured, okay? But Patty said, why don't you try some Catrify? And so I tried it straight from the bottle, 100% Catrify, twice a day for 2 days. Not only was the pain gone, but the lump was gone too. So that's when I said, okay, there's something here. There's something really happening here. This is real science. And so I started digging into it. Patty already knew it. So I had to do
And
my own research.
and say what you do when you smell essential oils. What you do? You
Yeah.
always smell essential oils,
Yeah,
right?
that's right.
And what happened is like when you smell essential oils, you became a little bit more sensitive. So you can just like when you go to a room, you have your sensitivity level to smell something is better.
That's right. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's good. So that's
Yeah.
why I want to mention that we are kind of part of the solution
That's
to
right.
bring in essential oils because they are tools for brain function. So, and I think they're tools. And I know people will think about it, they're a trend. No, they're like real tools to help
right.
your brain function, performance, longevity, health,
That's right.
whatever you want to do with your brain.
Yeah.
They are tools for your brain.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now we may not be able to bring the forest, or may not be able to be in the forest every day, but we can bring the forest indoors with the use of essential oils,
Yeah.
and this will all improve your olfactory system.
Yeah. So this is how we define essential oils a little bit. So they define our essential oils a
Yeah.
little
So
bit.
essential oils.
The way we think about essential oils, I would
Yeah.
say.
For those of you who are not familiar with essential oils, just think of essential oils as compressed plant communication. You take the essence of the plant and squeeze it down in many different ways, but you end up with something that is a residual of the plant chemistry. They're not perfumes, okay? Some of them may smell like perfumes, but they're not perfumes. They contain,
They smell good though.
yeah, some do, some don't. That's okay. It's all
Some
right.
smell strong.
Yeah. So each one of these essential oils can contain hundreds of naturally co-occurring molecules. So these things can be analyzed. We know what they are.
Yeah.
And then smelling several essential oils greatly increases the diversity of the molecules. So you
And
have
that's, part of like why that point is important, because of the fact that being olfactory deprived is having low diversity of molecule
that's
around
right.
your nose, around,
Exactly.
yeah.
Yeah. So then if you have two essential oils together or three together, and you smell these, then you have some synergistic effect for sure.
Yeah.
Are they replacements for nature? No,
No.
but they can help you. That's for sure, and they bridge the gap for you when you can't be in nature. You can have your essential oils are easily accessible, and diffusers are easy to use, and you don't even have to have a diffuser. You can just take the cap off the bottle and waft it and breathe deeply. All those sort of things.
Yeah.
So when do they work? Well, when the background fragrance noise is reduced, then you can have a good result there. We want to make sure that you have quality essential oils and the authenticity is respected and known. Unfortunately, there are a lot of essential oil providers out there that adulterate their essential oils by diluting them with triglycerides or oils or things like that that are not part of the
But
process.
yeah, the thing is like sometimes the elder, if the diluted, I think I'll be okay with that with like natural stuff. But sometimes they adulterate the essential oils with fragrances, and the fragrances you don't want it
That's right.
because the brain does not respond well to
That's right.
fragrances in terms of olfactory enrichment. The
Right.
brain responds to natural odorant.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's why all of these adulterated essential oils is not really good
Yeah.
for your brain at the end.
So to get the olfactory enrichment, make sure that the background noise is low. Don't try to do your treatment in an odoriferous location. You want to make sure that you're using a high quality oil, right? And then also do this on a regular basis. And then Patty, what do you recommend as far as timing for like a treatment? How long should they do that?
Okay, I am a little bit different because after the more I learn about all of these papers, the more I read papers, and the more you say your nose can heal the brain, because you say that a little bit often now, I think about inhaling essential oils as a restoration, not stimulation. So when I think about restoration, I personally breathe essential oils all day long because
Right.
I want to improve my olfactory system. And meaning that in the morning, when I come to my office, which is, we are in my office right now, I put the essential oils, 2, 3, 4 drops of 2 or 3 essential oils, and then I had it, and I do a passive diffusion, means that I don't have a diffuser like a water.
You don't have forced air. You don't have forced air or
Yeah,
water.
I don't have that.
Yeah.
Later. So my office is smelling essential oils all the time. So because my, some of the resolution that I want to do this year is like to really have that, I don't know how to say that, to really improve my olfactory system.
Yeah, you want to do the enrichment.
I
right?
want
Just
to
like
do the
everybody else.
enrichment.
Yeah.
So my enrichment is like all day long.
Yeah.
And I know some people say you can only breathe for 15
Yeah.
minutes. No, I don't do that.
No, but if you want to do a therapeutic dose in the morning and in the evening,
Yeah.
what would you say? 15 minutes in the morning, in the evening. You can have a background. Yeah, that's what we do.
Yeah.
We do something similar every night before bed. So yeah.
Yeah. So because of that, because of what I think it is, and I think it's going to help my brain live a little bit longer and function a little bit longer.
That's
So
right.
for me, essential oils should be part of a longevity conversation, right?
Yeah,
Because smelling essential oils can contribute to brain resilience
that's right. It's been
across
proven.
our lifetime, from a baby is born until we just like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We could go on and on and on about why you need essential oil enrichment and olfactory enrichment. But just remember that your nose can heal your brain, and it's
Yeah.
easy to do. It's easy to get started. And relearning to smell is relearning how to be embedded in the natural environment we were intended to be in. So this is all things
That's
that
key.
naturally we could do if we could live outside. right? But we can't. So we're going to enrich ourselves with essential oils indoors.
Yes, exactly, because it brings concentration, it brings diversity, it brings nature here because we have all of this filtered air and we have no odorant, a good odorant. So yeah, that's it. So essential oils is going to help us relearn how to smell in modern life. And I'm going to give you a little bit of a simple protocol or simple daily protocols that you can do.
Yeah.
Number one thing that I encourage you to do, and reminds me of whenever I was in Madagascar, to open the windows every day to bring in natural airborne compounds. Open the windows, okay?
That's right.
No matter if it's raining, if it's cold, if it's whatever, I do that, right?
Yeah, every day.
And because the problem is like we breathe in filtered air along with odorant that dull our brain. So we don't want that. We want some natural odorant to go through into our windows. So open the windows every day. Number two things is like, which is I do too, because we live on a farm and, I do have a little space to walk. So make sure that you go outside because the brain needs to smell the word outside.
That's right.
Because that is going to teach our brain how to live in it. The brain needs to know where I am within this airborne communication, so it has to sense that. My number three things, I would say, smell multiple essential oils every single day.
Right.
I do that every day. So that is going to help to increase the concentration and diversity of natural odorant. And also that is going to help to change the chemistry around your nose because that's the point, that's the whole thing. And also to change the chemistry of our environment because let's say you go to your friend's place, to a hospital, to any of these places. All of these places are either there is no odor, everything is sterile, or they have too much fragrances, right? So we want to change. If you smell essential oils, that is going to change a little bit the chemistry of the environment where you're going to be. So that is very important. And also, because of the paper that I say there is a little gap there, make sure that you smell the right essential oils at night.
So which one's your favorite?
My absolute favorite is going to be Ylang Ylang. You know that I use Ylang
That's
Ylang
right. It's a good one.
every single night.
Okay.
And guess what? When I forgot to use essential oils at night, my deep sleep is a little bit reduced.
Slower. For sure. Me too.
Yeah, so every time I use essential oils, that's why we want to talk about it next time.
That's right.
And also because why you want to smell essential oils, the right essential oils at night because you want to sleep better. So
That's right.
yeah, so these small and intentional olfactory enrichment practices can really restore that sensory dialogue, without effort or overwhelm. You can do it.
It's easy to do, like the doctor said in the paper.
Yeah.
Essential oils are accessible, inexpensive, they work, and there's no side effects, so why not give it a try?
Yeah, so, your nose can heal your brain, and your nose is a powerful tool for wellness and longevity. Let me repeat that. Your nose is a powerful tool for wellness and longevity. Never forget that. So, we're going to do more of that in the next talk.
Yeah, if you like what you've seen, like, follow, share, do all those things, and see us at Makaaina.com.
And see you in a few weeks.
All right. Thanks.